And this is really meant to be something that's like a follow-on to the intro session that we run, or if you've had a chance to get an overview, right? So we'll build on top of that. And so really what we're going to do is we're going to go beyond kind of the basics of the UI, and we are going to work on some of the nuances of the software. Now, taking a step back, right, the goal is to kind of give you some tips and tricks to help kind of reduce the stress levels in that come with tax season. So we're going to talk about ways that you can use the software, as well as kind of ways that you can plan so that you can kind of make set up yourself with a much less kind of stressful environment coming busy season. So first off, I want to touch on a couple things about support. Then some basics just about like what you can do given that you're working in a browser here in Tallyfor. We know so many of our customers and users are working with multiple screens and the like. There's a lot you can do to kind of boost your productivity. I'll touch on some of the admin and management functions to be aware of as you get started. And then I will kind of dive into the product, and we'll touch on kind of some of the nuances in working with the accounting data, some of the stuff about the tax maps and templates that we make available for kind of power user automation, some of the customization of the reports, and then a few items on how to manage the tax imports. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Bear with me. I'll bring this down here. All right. So let's get into Tallyfor. All right, I'm here in my account, and actually, one of the things that I want to bring to your attention are a couple of things are related to making best use of us, the team here at Tallyfor that's here to support you. We know that when you're really working in Tallyfor, and when our user numbers are spiking, that's also the time when deadlines are there. So we want it to be as easy as possible to resolve any issue that you may encounter as quickly as possible. So first thing I want to hit on, it's actually not even in the program. It's this little plugin I have here, Loom. A lot of our customers, they already use Loom as a way to actually communicate with clients. A popular, Loom is a way for you to make popular very easily is a way for you to very easily record a video off of your desktop. So it's great for a variety of purposes, across your firm. Specifically, when it comes to working in Tallyfor, it's super helpful because, anytime that a user encounters something or they have a question and they go ahead and make a quick Loom video, and there's a number of similar services, but you can make a quick video, share that with us. Those tickets get resolved the quickest out of any that we touch because immediately we know, okay, this is exactly what the user's looking at. Also, linked within the product are some videos and the learning center. Also, when you get into a particular environment, actually, you'll see that there's this beacon down here. One of the things that we stress with this beacon, and really when getting support in general, if you have a question about functionality, it can be really good to provide a video. If you are working with getting files in or out of Tallyfor and you're encountering any type of issue, whether you're using this beacon or whether you're just emailing support@tallyfor.com, please share the files when just on the first touch. Again, that's another thing that lets us get so much closer to a resolution in a quick manner. Now, a couple tidbits before we jump into the working bits. In a little bit, I'll touch on this templating feature. this is a way for you to kind of do the mapping and grouping in Tallyfor in bulk. That does need to be activated over here. Also, what you can do is, you can change the default, right? You can change the defaults here so that you can save some mouse clicks when you're getting into live returns. Now let's hop in, and I want to just start by working in a binder. Let's go ahead, and I'm just going to start in a brand new one here. I'll do a 2022. It's just a blank slate here. So, right, when you get into working with with the data here in Tallyfor, right, the first thing that you're going to do is upload your trial balance data. When working with these various sources, like I said, if you're ever trying to get a file into Tallyfor and you hit a wall, definitely just get those files to us as quickly as possible. We can usually resolve the issue, sometimes in less than 10 minutes. A couple things to call out, because really the two biggest areas where we would see users potentially encounter any hiccups along the way would be in the use of the Excel import here, first and foremost. And that's because this is the one kind of, I don't know, free form way for you to get data into the system, right? Everything else that you see up there in the left-hand corner, we're either connecting directly to something like QBO or Xero, or we're taking canned reports right out of their system and putting them into Tallyfor. And we want you to, not even have to touch those files. So, right, the Excel template, though, is the only one where you're actually like populating and editing something yourself that you're going to put into the software. So if you're going to be using this, one thing that I would really stress is, right, I love this help article so much, I opened it twice. This is going to be your friend. And a couple things I want to kind of highlight about this resource. One, there's this example file. Definitely just work off of the example file, right? And so you can see, download it here. Let's open it up and take a peek. Right, it comes with balances. So what I would do is, update this, and we will update this too, right, for the upcoming year. So it's a 12/31/2023. Have this saved locally, right, and start from this template every time you're gonna work on a client. That every time you're gonna use this with a client. The reason being is we see folks get or encounter issues many times because they are basically taking the last Excel trial balance that they built, right, opening that, editing it, saving it as a new copy, and it's almost like the file begins to collect relics in it. And really all we want are in this file are values, meaning just flat numbers, or text strings like the names of the accounts and the account types. When people start kind of working in these files like over and over again, what we find is that they end up, adding and editing columns and adding and hiding columns and adding formulas and doing all this stuff that, creates a file that's not really readable by the system. Also in this article, I would read through it once, right, to understand the ins and outs of the preparation process. But at the bottom here is this troubleshooting summary. If you have any problems and run through this checklist, you most likely will find them resolved. So this is really, something for you to fall back on. And again, if this is going to be something that you're going to use as one of your primary, accounting data sources, with your use of Tallyfor, spend some time, go through this, make sure you're clear on all of these items. And then again, if you ever hit any hiccups, like let us jump in and tackle it for you. Over on the QBD side, right? So, and we call this QBD, but this is also the way that you can get reports in from QBO. We have seen a lot of folks, and we see this because, right, you use either the Google or Microsoft login when you log into Tallyfor. And we have seen a pretty noticeable uptick in the number of firms that are actually switching from Google to Microsoft. And we've also seen this when folks have switched from like a Microsoft Exchange setup to Office 365. With QuickBooks Desktop, it essentially works with your local license for Microsoft Excel. So if you have some type of change that occurs, right, and it could occur as part of you doing one of those broader kind of platform changes, we've seen a number of folks recently who needed to basically update the way that their Excel license works with QuickBooks Desktop in order to get it to properly export out in these reports here in Excel. So if you encounter something like that, I would double check, or right, if you are one of those firms that has made a similar switch, make sure that you cover that off, right? That your QuickBooks Desktop install is properly configured with your Excel install. And again, just like I mentioned with the Excel trial balance, right? If you're going to be using the QuickBooks reports quite a bit, this guide is going to be your friend. One thing that I want to draw attention to are these sample reports, right? So we have them from both systems. If you find, like, if you follow the instructions, you pull the data from whatever QuickBooks version, you get the files, you bring it in, and you encounter an error, this is a good place to cross-reference, because from time to time, we have seen a few instances where somebody has, customized or tweaked some of the report settings, or they have, maybe an older version of QuickBooks Desktop, and the report outputs are slightly different. So again, if you ever encounter that, we're here. We'll help you quickly troubleshoot. Okay, that all said, now let's get into the meat and potatoes, and let's get some data in here. So I'm going to use one of those trusty Excel files. Okay, now that I got some data in here, right, and we're in the actual, a real working environment, right, this is really what it's going to look like when you're in here starting to work on a return. I want to highlight a couple things about working in the browser. So, right, I'm here in a single window, and you'll see this immediately as you're in Tallyfor, right? The journal entry panel kind of lives over here, and it can slide right in and out accordingly. Also, what we have is, because we're in the browser, right, you have all these kind of native browser tools available to you, and also especially if you're in the Windows environment, they actually do quite a bit to help you work with like a split screen. So, right, don't forget that you have these browser controls, right? You can search for items. Right, I can't stress that enough. There's a lot of times when I see folks working in the system where they're used to working maybe more in like the legacy tax software environment. Another thing that I think is huge, especially when working on this first time mapping, is working dual window. All right, so 2 windows on one screen, multiple windows on multiple screens, and it's particularly applicable here, especially as you get familiar with the system, and also as you work on, in the trial balance tab and do that first time mapping. So I like to set my screen up so that I actually can see this side by side here. Right. Reason being is because everything that I'm going to do right here, right, will now be built out. See these work papers basically building in front of me. All right, so you can see as I move these along, right, it's all happening in front of me. So I encourage you, like, you can dial, everybody's got a slightly different setup and such, but you can dial this in pretty good. I've even created like some extra keyboard shortcuts on my computer, again, to make kind of the multi-window environment, right? The stuff that's kind of already there work as well for me as possible. Also, another thing from this view. So I'm going to right now do one of my Tallybot auto M1s. Right. And one of the things that's cool about that feature, right, it kind of auto creates the JE for you when that takes place. Right. Now, the other thing that I like is that, you can basically, because, I've got a JE in there now, right? And you can kind of use this JE panel too in a view like this, where if you're actually wanting to actually like look through, or you're more maybe towards the end of preparation or into review, right? And you want to, for example, right, you're looking at different accounts and you want to see where the journal entries have occurred, right? And you can see the account name right there. If you click on a given account name in the trial balance tab, you'll see the JEs that are hitting that account. So it's an easy way to kind of navigate that. All right. And so again, as you're getting ready to get going, remember that you can kind of dial in your workspace here. So let's turn our attention towards, all right, I'm working in the mapping here, and this is all pretty straightforward, right? One of the first things is somebody in the system learns how to do, utilize, the drop downs accordingly, right? Leverage these tax labels to rename accounts as needed, be creating groups, right? When they want to nest a number of accounts, kind of inside one line, especially on an attached statement. But we have a very powerful feature that lets you do this in bulk. So these little what we call line codes, right? So in gross receipts, you see 01A in brackets. In returns and allowances, you see 01B in brackets. Those line codes power the templates that I'm about to show you, right? And this is also a good place to maybe explain a little bit more about this drop down itself. So, right, you see these codes 8825, right? That's form 8825, right? And you can see the way that with this naming convention that we have, right? So anything that's basically not on the face or not on Schedule L, we're going to call out kind of the specific section. So Schedule K, so any of the schedules, right, that we have in there. Right, you can see those accordingly. And so that these lists can run pretty deep. Right, but with all of them, again, even let's just go back to Schedule K, you'll see that there is a line code with each of them. So that is what we use in this templating function. And this is the way folks use this template. It's really 3 scenarios. It would be, and while I explain this, I'm going to clean this out here so we can reuse it. So the way that folks will use these is if they have a standard chart of accounts, maybe not for all of their clients, but for some of them, it runs off of basically the link between the account number and that line code. So let's look at the file here. All right, and honestly, these words, you know, the line descriptions are not even necessary. You can simply use the line codes. So, right, when folks have a quote unquote standard chart of accounts, right, and then what that means is that, right, they have a consistent numbering system. There can be some variability in terms of names, right, but their numbering system is consistent with respect to how the accounts are going to map to the tax forms, right? It's like every bank account is 1,000 and something, right? And then they have, you know, kind of a master COA. So we can help you develop, you know, a template if you have kind of some level of, and again, standardization, I would say we kind of, it's somewhat used loosely, right? It's not like every single account in every single COA is the same. It's more like all the clients are kind of drawing from the same master chart of accounts. The other way that folks use this is if they have a very long trial balance for a client. Right? If you have a really long one, it can be easier to simply hash this out in Excel, get it loaded into the system. And as you can see, right, you would use that drop down in Tallyfor essentially as your glossary, right? And it'll show you which code would go for each tax line. And here is where you would do your grouping, right? And renaming basically. So, right, if you have multiple accounts here that you want grouped for attached statements and the like, you just simply populate all of those rows with the same group name. All right, and then the last scenario where we see people use this are honestly folks that like literally know these line numbers off the top of their head, and they're like Excel ninjas, right? And they can just like bang that thing out and get it set up, apply it in here, right? Now I have my mapping. And as you know, right, all this mapping that we do the first time we touch a client, everything is going to be, you know, something that we can include in our roll forward. All right, and for good measure, let's just finish this one up. Okay, so what are we looking at here, right? As we've been moving through this discussion, I've effectively built out my return in Tallyfor. Obviously, a big step along the way, and a big, you know, purpose of or reason for using the software, right, is because of the, pardon me, right, this tax file, right? So if you still haven't loaded a tax file in, you know, downloaded and then imported a tax file into your software using Tallyfor, make sure you pay attention to, you know, every filing product will have a tooltip here with your import guide. Right, some of the systems, let's say Lacert, UltraTax, the CCH products, right? They all have a one-time setup that somebody will do. It's very simple, maybe a 1 to 2 minute process that is very easy to follow in the respective help center resource. Right, so somebody will go in here. One thing that we might recommend is, you know, whoever's kind of leading the charge for your team, go ahead, be the first one to do the import, right? And then do a quick video for your team if they're going to be doing this as well, right? Where they don't have to see the import, the setup process that's outlined here, but you can give them a look of like, okay, here's our environment, right? Here's our install of, in this case, Lacert. And, you know, here is me actually taking a tax file out of our Tallyfor account and importing it into our instance of Lacert. It's a very helpful thing. Now, the other side of this is, right, you're going to want to pull some reports and the like out of the system. So with this JE report, right, if you've got book JEs in here that you need to kick back to the bookkeeping or accounting team, simply use these boxes to filter it out, and you can pull this report down individually. Right, you can do the same thing on all these other screens, report screens, where you can download a report individually. But like, say in particular on the balance sheet, right? This handy dandy hide reclass tax button, right? You press that, you get, boom, there's your book basis balance sheet, right? And this is really what's a representative of, what's going to go into your tax software. Anything that you do here, all right, so if I want to select an old ATB and apply it, anything that I want to do here, these toggles, if I want to hide columns, it'll all be reflected in both the individual downloads as well as the master download that comes from the system. So again, you can do a little bit of customization. This is an area where we're looking to add some more and more. And that about covers off what I want to do in product. Before I go ahead and open it up for questions, one of the things that I want to share is what folks are doing, kind of right now in advance of the season. So we're seeing a lot of success with, firms that are basically, they're really getting out in front of tax season, right? They're taking the time that that they would typically spend during busy season, right, to kind of do this mapping, grouping, and the like. They're basically just recreating their 2022 returns in the system. If you're a new customer, right, and you're just basically replicating a return that you've already filed, we will actually give you your binder credits back as you set them up. And my recommendation would be get your team into some of the training, some of these webinars. There's online resources. Every new customer gets a one-on-one session. And then look at your client list, right? And look at who's going to, first and foremost, who's going to file on time next year. Take that group. There's a couple different ways that you could kind of filter it or segment it. Some folks, they say, all right, we're just going to blow through all the easy clients that we have, get all those returns set up in Tallyfor and simply roll it forward when we're ready to do the 2023 return. Others, and then we've got, tax season to really concentrate on the hairy stuff. Some folks do the opposite. Some firms, just take those clients and they divvy them up amongst staff, and they just tell everybody, hey, you're going to get these, 8, 12, whatever clients done between now and January 15th, say. So, but definitely the getting, using this not just as a way to skip through the data entry during busy season, but also as a way to get out in front of the workload and avoid some of the compression are really where folks will get the kind of the most bang for their buck. So share the resources with the team. I can't stress it enough. Definitely raise your hand and try to follow those couple tips that I provided in terms of allowing us to help you, as quickly as possible. And then, we're always just, an email away. We're definitely not a company where things go and languish in the support email. That's your way to actually get, an issue that you're having out in front of our entire team. So we treat that very, very seriously. So I got a few minutes left, and I'm happy to do some Q&A. All right, well, with no questions, I'll give you the time back. You know where to find us. Please know that we're here to help. And let's make this this tax season the best one yet. Cheers, folks.